Alright guys, today we're working on a 2012 Honda Odyssey and we're changing the spark plugs. On the 2012 Honda Odyssey, you're going to discover that the spark plugs go along the front of the engine and in the back. And to access it, you're going to have to remove this cover. And along the front of the engine, you can see the 3 coil packs, you can see the bolts, and you can see the pigtails, the wires. So right across from it, in the back, you're not going to be able to see it. There's 3 more spark plugs and there's 3 more coils, and they're tucked behind here. So right now we're just going to start with the very easy basic. We're just going to do the front and then we're going to move our way to the back. So first thing is first, we're going to go ahead and break loose all of the nuts that hold the coil packs in the front. So since you're going to be removing all of them, I like to just go ahead and just loosen all of them, remove the nuts, and move on to the next. It requires a 10mm socket. Now that they're broken loose, you could pretty much do it by hand. If you come across a situation where you can't do it by hand after you break them loose, then just continue to use the tool, of course. But once you break them loose, you could just twist them off by hand. Okay, now that I have those nuts removed, I'm going to go ahead and remove the pigtails off of the coil pack. Right here on the pigtail, you're going to push down on this clip right here to release it. And then while pushing down, you're going to push up. You're going to pull up and they come off that easily sometimes. Like I said, sometimes. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and remove all of the coil packs. Keep in mind when you're removing the coil packs, sometimes you're not going to be able to come straight out. You might have to go in an angle. You're just going to have to figure out how you could pull them out. The next thing I'm going to want you to do is each coil pack you remove, you're going to want to give it a visual inspection. You're going to want to look for any type of cracks or any signs of anything being damaged on them. A lot of the times it'll crack along here and it will cause a misfire. So this coil pack is actually from my Honda Ridgeline and they look similar but they're not the same. You can see the pigtails are different, but if you look right here, you can see that pin has corrosion. This is a bad one. Of course you could try to clean that out, but I just went ahead and replaced it. So that's what you're going to be inspecting for. You're going to be looking at the pins, making sure that they all look clean, and you're going to make sure that there is no cracks. Wow. All right, so I just pulled out this coil pack and you can see right here the plastic has started to just come apart and deteriorate. This is a coil pack that you're going to want to replace. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and replace all of them because they're all going to be around the same age and they're all going to start deteriorating just like this one. So this is what I'm telling you to look for, things like this. This will cause a misfire later on. This coil pack could be firing just fine now, but as the material starts to further break down, it will cause a misfire. So I pulled the next coil pack down the line and I discovered that there is a little bit of oil on here on the coil pack. This will also cause a misfire. Okay, if you leave it unchecked, untreated, this will cause a misfire. And what's causing this oil leak inside here is there is some O-rings that sit right over the valve cover gasket. That O-ring has failed and it's time to replace the valve cover gaskets. So it looks like I'm going to be ordering some valve cover gaskets and I'm going to be replacing those. But right now we're going to continue to focus on the spark plugs and replacing them so I can show you exactly how to do that. So next you're going to need a spark plug socket, and right now I'm using a 5/8 socket. So I have 2 different styles here. I have one with an extension built in and it's got a swivel, and I have this one that's just the socket on its own. You're going to want to use one that's like this, an extension that's short, or it has no extension at all. The reason being is you're going to want to slide this in first, because there is not much room to slide one with the extension built in already. And let me show you what I'm talking about. So this one is a 5/8 socket with the extension already built in, and there is no way I could fit it inside here. You see, I just don't have enough of an angle, and especially when I move to the back of the engine, I'm not going to be able to use this one. So you're going to want to have one like this, or just a socket alone, and what you're going to do is just slide it in to the cylinder hole and just drop it in there. And then with an extension, you're going to connect it, and now you can access that spark plug and service it. So this part could be very tricky if you've never done it before. What you're going to do, once you have the spark plug loose and you can feel it just keeps spinning and it's loose and you can feel it's going to come out, you're going to pull up and you're going to see the extension, and you're going to separate the extension from the socket and then remove the socket with the spark plug attached to it. And you can see there's a little bit of oil around here, and that's because, like I was saying before, the O-ring on the valve cover gasket has failed and it's starting to seep onto the spark plug, and this is compromising the spark plug right now. But even though I have to replace that gasket, we're just going to continue to replace the spark plugs to show you, and soon after I'm going to replace this valve cover gasket. So if you come across a situation like this where you find oil or even coolant, because you can find coolant inside the cylinder, what you're going to want to do is address it, because all the work that you're doing, it's going to be washed away. Once the oil starts seeping into the spark plug, it will compromise it and it will no longer fire, and you will get a misfire. So address the bigger issue, and that would be either the coolant leak from more than likely a broken intake manifold, or the gasket from the valve cover gasket. So now that you have removed one of the spark plugs, you can go ahead and insert one of the new ones. And it's always a good practice to put a little bit of anti-seize around the threads. Now, a little bit goes a long ways, and I'm just gonna dab my finger right here along the threads and just put a little bit on, and this helps with any type of corrosion that it will occur from the spark plugs being heated up several cycles throughout its lifetime and seizing up on you. Okay, so right now what I'm going to do is I'm grabbing the socket and I'm inserting it. I'm inserting the spark plug into the socket. I'm able to hold the spark plug into place and insert it into the cylinder. And now that it's down in here, I can twist it on by hand. And now that I feel that it's snug, I can go ahead and tighten it. Now, when you're doing this, you don't want to over tighten them. You want to install them snug, and that's about it. So now I'm going to repeat the same process for the remaining two in the front, and then go ahead and move to the back. So now that you have all of the front replaced, you're going to go ahead and install the coil pack. And installing it is just as simple as doing everything you'd have done in reverse. Now in my situation, since I have a broken one and I got to replace them all, I'm just going to install one just to show you how it's done. And then later on, I'm going to go to the store and pick some up. Now these can be tricky to install back on, and notice I had to go in an angle like I was saying before, and just maneuvering it so I can figure out how to install it. You just insert it back, install the nut, plug the pigtail. All right, so now I'm focusing on the rear ones. So now that we have had some practice removing the front, we're going to remove the ones in the rear. And I really can't show you in this section of the video how to do it because I physically can't fit the camera back there. And it's basically the same thing except you're blindfolded. So it's going to be more of a feel and touch situation like I was explaining before. And right now what I am doing is I am pushing on the pigtails and I'm releasing all of the plugs. And now I'm going to go ahead and remove all of the bolts. All right, so I just pulled the center one, and like I was saying before, you're not going to be able to pull it straight out. You're going to have to come as far back as you can, and then go in an angle and then remove it. It's still going to be a tight fit because there's hoses, there's all sorts of wires, there's things along the back of the firewall, but you will be able to remove it. Just have some patience and take your time. And always remember, just like I showed you in the front, inspect the boots, make sure everything looks good, make sure that this isn't soaked with oil or coolant, and if it is, go ahead and replace it and address what's causing the leak. So if you look at this coil pack compared to this one, this is the original one and this is an aftermarket one. This coil pack was replaced right around 90,000 miles. And you can see it looks completely different. It looks brand new almost. And this one's kind of old. And I believe the van has about 130,000 right now. So original, aftermarket. All right, so I'm gonna throw a bonus in this video to kind of help you out just in case you're running into this situation. So in the likely event that you're chasing a misfire, because you're search for this video and you're changing out the spark plugs and you're wondering how to replace the spark plugs. When you have a misfire, it could be a couple of things that could cause the misfire. Sometimes it could be the spark plugs, it could be the coil pack, or it can be an injector, or even sometimes you could have some coolant or oil seeping into that spark plug causing the misfire. The quickest and fastest way into diagnosing what cylinder is causing the problem and what's causing the misfire is simply to, if you have a check engine light, read the code, see what the code is saying. If the code is saying cylinder 1, go ahead and remove the coil pack from cylinder 1, inspect the coil pack. Okay, if the coil pack seems to be good, what I would want you to do is swap it out with another cylinder, preferably one in the other side of the engine. You swap out the coil pack, you install it again, and you start the vehicle. If the vehicle then exhibits a misfiring, let's say in cylinder 6, and you used to have it in cylinder 1, then that means that the coil pack was bad and it has moved, you have moved the problem further down into a different cylinder. If it exhibits the same misfire in cylinder 1, just like before, then that means that the coil pack was completely fine and there is something else going on. Perhaps it's a spark plug, or perhaps even the injector. There could be a different problem. There could even be a problem with one of your pigtails. There could be a problem with a short somewhere. You have so many variables. But that is one of the quickest way into diagnosing and figuring out whether or not it's the coil pack or there's something else going on. We're moving on to removing the spark plugs. And just like in the front, you're gonna have to insert the socket and then install the extension and then install the ratchet and pull them out one section at a time. This part can be a little bit of a pain in the butt, so take your time, don't get frustrated, you will get it done. And this will be the toughest thing to do, is pulling out the extension, holding onto the socket, pulling the spark plug further up the cylinder and taking everything out in pieces because you simply have no room back here. But if you have patience, and with a little bit of finesse, you will be able to remove it. So in a situation like this where you need to replace the coil packs or you need to replace the spark plugs, somebody will charge you, a mechanic will charge you somewhere around $400 to $500 just to replace the spark plugs. Now, I only have $70 invested on the spark plugs, and it took me a little bit less than an hour even with recording this video. So this is something that's very easy and you could do at home, and it would save you a lot of money. I have a lot of videos like this where I break it down, and it's very simple to do if you just follow all these steps. So tune in to my channel, subscribe, because you never know what I'm going to be working on next. There could be a tip in how to maintain your AC system, how to replace something else, or even diagnose an injector or so. So I am currently working on other projects, and I have a couple of builds being done on my channel. So make sure to subscribe and check out my channel and see everything else we got going on. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.